Welcome back, everyone, to another installment of On the Fly podcast. I'm your host, Martin Bose, Coach and Player Education Director for Mass Youth Lax, and I'm ecstatic to share today's episode with an amazing coach, an amazing person that I've been able to get to know over the last couple of years, and I think it's going to be a really valuable episode out there for coaches to listen to. So, Patrick Chapla, owner, founder, creator of PowLax, solopreneur, content creator, extraordinaire. This is what he does. He makes content for coaches. He coaches lacrosse, and he coaches coaches. So we're really, really blessed to have you with us today. I'm excited to talk about a number of different things I think are going to be valuable for coaches. And I think it's great timing, with the season right around the corner. This is the time that coaches are really starting to gear up and think about how they want to spend their time, how they want to communicate with parents, how they want to communicate with players. And so, first of all, thank you for being here, and I'm excited to chat with you.
You're welcome. I'm pumped. I'm excited to see where we go, how we take it.
Love it. So I want to just kind of break the ice with you a little bit and give you a chance to, introduce your story, how you kind of got into coaching lacrosse, and I guess as a secondary, why it's been so important for you.
Totally. So my story starts when I was 6. We live in Colorado, so there wasn't really much lacrosse. It's still a pretty niche sport, but back then it was even more kind of niche. A buddy of my older brother, while they were in high school, was like, you got to come play lacrosse. And so they started. So always had a stick in my house. We'd play. I'd get kind of instruction from them here and there. My dad picked it up when he was 44. Actually just remade a video about a coach I met at the New England Youth Lacrosse Convention where he asked me about my dad, like right when we met. And so in my book, The Player and Parent's Guide to Lacrosse, I mentioned that my dad found it when he was 44 and he hopped in to help us. And so the mention of all of the, like, as we were talking, he was like, no, I read in your book that he found it then. And like, it just gave me hope and belief that I could do this for my kid too. And so as a general overview message for parents who are hopping into this, the message is like, we've got you. Like, the lacrosse community is incredible because the one term that you'll hear over and over again is we're trying to grow the game, and we grow the game through you. And it's funny, I was talking to a coach, one of the all-time high school leaders. I want to say he's like 4th all-time with over 500 wins. He was talking about how movement mechanics don't change for humans. So he's like, if you got a guy who plays baseball, like, teach him how to throw. If you throw a baseball with a mitt and and your kid's got a lacrosse stick, like, do that, because as you come over in the right way to throw the ball, it is the same with a lacrosse stick. You're just having your other hand on it. But so there's so many little nuances to coaching that, like, people don't know that they already have an understanding and that they can utilize that understanding as they're continuing. But so I picked it up then. It became ingrained in my family. I went out to Goucher to play in college, came back, worked at a youth corrections facility that had lacrosse. My brother had actually started it. Kind of a funny story is he was an employee there and he does everything to the best of his ability. He's amazing. And the director of this youth corrections facility was like, we've got an extra $5,000. What do you want to do? And they're sitting in this meeting and he's like, I want to start a lacrosse team. And so these are not like, these are felon kids. They can't leave this facility. And the lady looks across and goes, do you want to give these kids sticks to hit each other with? And he's like, yes. And so they built the program, started all that. And then as I got out of college, I coached with Jamie Monroe at 3D. He gave me like a really awesome outline framework, and moved on to coaching in high school. I was creating, like, when I was younger, because I had a stick in my hand all the time and you couldn't DVR things or just pick exactly what you wanted to watch, I would sit in front of my TV and I would, just switch hands like my brother had taught me, or I would try these tricks. And so now one of my favorite parts of being at conventions is, doing a trick in front of a kid and he goes, oh, and you're like, dude, I'll teach you. And then it takes probably, for a kid who's been playing for a year, it takes probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 tries till he gets this trick that he didn't even know existed. And it's like, that's the thing where, for me, lacrosse has, as the creator's game, has helped me find my gifts and the way I want to work towards them, and to work hard, but within a fun environment where you're creating an environment where you can learn gifts that will transcend the sport, right? It's what all sport is about. It's not about like being a good lacrosse player. Like, yeah, that's awesome. but we want to use the teammate mechanics and the ability to take instruction, and we want to make that transcend into your family life, into your work life. And that, I guess, to kind of quicken up the end of the story, is as I was doing that and I learned so much from Jamie and other coaches, I wanted to like get everything I knew out on video and on paper. And so I started creating a bunch of coaching content. The last story I'll say, just because it's probably the most meaningful story in my validation, is I went to LaxCon, rest in peace. I think the New England Youth Lacrosse Convention is doing great to keep up that thing. I'm excited for it to grow. But so I went there, and this was probably a year after I'd put all of my content that I'd built out for free. And I had coaches come up to me and saying, like, you gave me the framework to connect with my kid. Like, I didn't have that before, and I could coach this well. And it validated the 2-3 years of creating this content that I had, had been working on. And I get home, and my son, who was, I want to say 1.5, I walk in the house from the flight, and I go up and I sit on the toilet, and my wife is giving my son a bath. I wasn't there doing that. And like, I just started to cry, because I had just worked for 3 years on something that, had picked up a little traction, but seeing the faces of the people who had used the content to connect with their kids was so meaningful. And I'm looking at my son, and I'm like, I just hope that one day he learns the skills and uses them in a way where other people come up to him and thank him. And he realizes that the power that he has within himself, that God put in him, that he can be helpful to the community. And it was just a very big, like, I guess I want to say transcendental. I don't know if that's the right word, but it was just, that's why we're here, to help people in their goals, and to help them bring out what God has given them. And so to tie this into the creator's game, and the video I recommend everyone to watch that I've made, it's called So Your Kid Wants to Play Lacrosse, What is Lacrosse? And it goes through the history. We talked to Alvy Jacques, who's one of the, rest in peace, he passed a couple of years ago, but he makes these incredible wooden sticks. And he talks about how the stick is a connection to the earth. Like, I can't grow wood, like God grew this wood. And so it connects us to that. And then when you play the game, it doesn't matter. This is one of the best parts about lacrosse, is that you can be big and broad and slow, but you could also be quick, nimble, and fast. And like, your ability to be in this environment where you can explore what that is and how to use your gifts to, help your team and help the game, is something that a lot of other sports don't have. Because, if you're not the best, quickest, fastest person, you can't be a wide receiver or a running back. If you're not big and huge, you can't be a lineman. But in lacrosse, you get to be all of the things. Like, in one play, you could be a linebacker, and then a running back, and then a quarterback, all in a quick segment. And it's like, the ability to do that in that way helps for kids to find whatever is dwelling within them and bring it out. And so that's kind of the ultimate goal within educating and kind of putting everything that I have out and all that.
Love it, dude. So much of what you just said, I think, is going to translate for coaches. And I just want to pull out like one or two things. One thing that I think a lot of coaches can appreciate is, it's a sport as a vehicle, right? It's a vehicle to get better at life, to be a better friend, to be a better parent, what have you, right? And then the other thing that you said, I think, is really worth pulling out for coaches is like, you made the reference of like throwing a ball and catching a ball, just as like a baseball reference. Like, no matter what other sport you played growing up, could be soccer, could be anything, or any other sport that you coach, there's something you can pull from that into lacrosse because of all these different components that go into this game. And I also, I will link that video in the description that you just made reference to. So I really would encourage coaches to go watch that. I've seen it. It's an awesome, awesome video. I'm really glad you made it. And so thank you for doing this work, man. You've been a vendor at these conventions. You've been a speaker. You're around, you're networking, you're talking to people, and I see people coming up to you. I see people going, dude, you've helped me. Like, oh, can we talk about this? Like, I have this story about how the story of your father had this impact on me, and it's like, dude, that's what it's all about. That's kind of the essence of, sport as a vehicle towards the bigger picture in life, right? It's not about winning and losing per se, right? And so, yeah, just want to give you a little shout out and some appreciation there.
Thanks, man.
When you are thinking about kind of what got you to this point in like your career of like coaching coaches, you made reference to that, like, all right, I just want to get what I know on paper, and was that initial thought like for coaches, or was that for something else, and then it turned into, this is actually for coaches? And like, how did you start realizing, like, no, like, part of why I'm here is so that I can help educate coaches, not only to teach the game but also to connect with their kids better?
So originally, and I still have this numbers, which is like Excel on Mac, this document called so POWLAC stands for Pack of Wolves Lacrosse. And the reason it stands for that is because on planet Earth, there was a video. They finally found these wolves that would like send a flank dog to scare the deer over here, and then they'd go attack. Well, that's offense. That's how offense works. We're going to draw to here. We're going to bang it twice. We're going to attack this side. Just to put the like framework of the changes, this was originally a private lesson business that blossomed into a stick stringing business, as well as a wax mesh making business, as well as a club. And then it's gone through so many iterations, but the single like thread through it has always been lacrosse. And so when I decided to put all of the information and kind of get it all on paper, it was just so that I could have a reference to what I had known and kind of go over everything. And then as I started to create some of it, I was like, there's a lot here. Like, I could sell this. And I put it behind a paywall, and it did nothing for 2 years. And then if you know Gary Vee, he said, put everything that you have, all your best stuff out for free. And so I did. And that was about a year before meeting everybody at LaxCon. And so that was the origin of it. It was just to put everything in a place where I could then either revisit it or I could just enjoy it. And it's funny, I still have all of my notebooks from back in the day, and it's fun to go back through those and kind of see where my reference was. Because as you're coaching, one of the toughest parts is really bearing it in your soul that you cannot talk a skill into a child. You can't. It's not possible. And so as I'm looking through the old things I used to make, there was like all of this terminology, all of these, like, this is how this motion works, that motion works. And I think that's very good at a high school level when the framework is there for the player. But when it's not there, when the game's framework isn't there, that's all just right over their heads. And so the key, and I found this in a lot of things in my life, where it's almost like thinking of any exploration into a part of life or a part of a business or a part of a sport, is you're going up like the trunk of a tree and you've got your basics. And then as you explore how to teach it, you kind of like come back out into all these different areas. Well, then if you don't prune that down, there's no way the kid's going to have an understanding of what that is. And so finding like the through lines where you can teach one concept or add one constraint or add one thing, it fits in everything else. And so as I was talking to the high school coach with all the wins, he said this thing, and it stuck in my head like immediately. And it was, how can you run a practice where you get a lot of other stuff for free? Like, if you set up, say a 5-second rule on carrying, right? You get a lot of stuff for free. You get eyes up for free. You get running for free. You get so many different elements that fit in every spot of the game, just because you decided that you're going to stand there and you're going to count, 5, 4, and then you go 3, 2, and then he throws it. But the other thing you get there, and this is the one that encompasses everything, is you get a decision out of the kid. And that's the most important thing a player must do at a practice. They must make a decision. And so some of them will freeze. Some of them will just chuck it. Some of them will, look, see, step away, find the right guy, and move it. But if you don't allow them to make those decisions, you don't see I sent an email, and we're going to explore it in my Powlax Lacrosse Toolkit email with all the coaches who've kind of been involved. The thing we're exploring in the next 3 emails that'll come out the next couple of days is coaching behind the ball. And it's the act of allowing the play to generate and to go and just let it be. And then as you see something happen, you let it happen, and then it goes away from that player. And then you walk up to that player and you address something. Now, how you address it's important. And so I want to bring up the story that was told to me. He was at a Coach K basketball practice when Grant Hill was the player at Duke. And they get into this practice mechanic, and they're going, and Coach K had a mic on his lapel that was coming through the entire system. And he's like, I'm sitting there and I'm going, he's not really coaching at all. And he's like, this kind of hit him in a way that was like, wow, this is interesting. And as Grant Hill, like one of the best basketball players, I don't know, he's probably top 50. I don't know basketball that well, but he makes this move, and he just makes this terrible decision. And he just didn't really look to his left to see what it was. But so as the play continued to happen, he didn't stop anything, but he walked up to Grant and he said, like, what did you see? And he's like, oh, I was thinking the basket, and I was thinking this and that. And all he said was, next time look left. And that was it. And so much of that takes, so here's another thing I've got to get into for the coaches. And this is what I find a lot is, let's say you're a dad in a Midwestern state that doesn't have lacrosse, and no one's going to coach your kid's team. And you're like, well, I could do it. The insidious nature of youth sports now is the expectation of performance of the players. And that then like trickulates up to the coach. And so a coach is putting in more time than anyone to develop this team with no framework, maybe even they have a general understanding of the game, and maybe they even coach another sport where they can actually connect well with the players. But once things start going wrong, and all the parents, all of your peers are looking at you, it can get very tense inside. And that's the moment where you have to be able to control your emotions to not jeopardize the experience for the players. So I've said it 1,000 times, and it's funny. I think I got it sitting with a guy named Clark at LaxCon, but it was that we create confident coaches because confident coaches create great environments for players. And once that judgment starts coming in at you, or you feel it, you can then overmanage, overcoach, overdo all these things where it just ruins the fun of the game. And so there are like 15 different things I could build off of that with, but it's a hard spot to be in. And so that's one of the whys behind what I do, is because when I was younger, I didn't play competitive or in anything till 8th grade. But when I got there, I was one of the best players that was there. And it was just because I had the stick in my hand for, 7 years. And it wasn't like I had it in my hand every day. It was that, every 2 months I'd see the stick behind the door and I'd pick it up and I'd play with it. But just that and so here's another awesome coaching concept that coaches got to just realize, is that until controlling the ball becomes second nature, the idea of thinking about others, your brain's too preoccupied with controlling the ball to think about other people or the team. And it doesn't mean that you don't let them play. Like, oh, we've got to make sure everyone can control the ball because like we haven't worked on our cradling enough, so we've got to just only do cradling for this amount of time. No, because not to get into the nonlinear pedagogy stuff as well, but the experience of playing the game is not taken out of the skill. Like you could cradle in your basement for forever and you might have better technique, but until there's someone there trying to check your hands, those are not the same things. And so the understanding of development and the incorporation of play as well as dialing in the stick skills, and I've learned so much from all the coaches. I've been calling all these coaches trying to share with them my new app and whatnot, but One of the things this coach said that was really awesome was like, you just have to hit the edges really hard every practice. So one of the most boring times during practice is stick work. But one of the reasons it's boring is because a lot of coaches just want the kids to go do it, but they're not getting in with the kids to like, each individual kid should be, at least hit every 2 weeks, where it's like, as we're doing passing and we're talking about turning your shoulders, getting your arms away, firing through, when you dive into the details for each kid and you refine a specific element of that skill, it helps to just build the team. Because when one kid on the team, say, gets a little better at passing, and you think about it in the concept of an offense or a clear or whatever, when that kid can give a pass that hits the other player in their stick, in their box area, the kid who caught it gets to move half a second faster. Whereas if I have to reach behind me and now I've got to think about controlling it, I'm now 2 steps behind of where I could have been if it had been there. So each little act of refinement of those skills helps the team. So yeah, that's
So
all kinds of things.
the coaching concept about like every 2 weeks, you mean like, at least once every 2 weeks, you should be helping a kid refine his stick work technique. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that so one of the things that a lot of coaches do, and this isn't a terrible thing because you're trying to manage all these parts of practice. We got a team meeting on, Thursday, and we got a team dinner here, and we got to make sure that I remind them that they've got to be at the field at this time. And I got to send this email to the parents, and all of these things are going through your head, that when you put the kids in a very simple drill like partner passing or eye passing or any of these drills, the common thing to do, some of them don't know the technique part, so that's kind of another aspect of this, but is to just let them go. Whereas that's when you want to coach the most, is within the techniques and within those items where, let's say you have a team of 16 players or 18 players, and say you practice 2 times a week, you got 18 players, you need to hit 6 kids every day, where when they're in that skill work, you're refining one thing with that kid in those 15 minutes. And then you're like, so it's like 3 minutes for this kid, 3 minutes for this kid, 3 minutes for this kid, where in the act of what they're doing, you're giving them real refinement of those skills because it will blossom.
And the timing is so critical, right? Yeah, like, and one of the things that I had Brody Merrill on 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about, however much you're creating free play environment at practice should probably be more. And he had this phrase, it was every 20. You as a coach get 20 seconds to, like, speak to the whole group every 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of an extreme example, but it's like, it's a good way to think about it, right? Like, we need to be playing more at practice. And when you are doing technique focused things, which is always going to be that first portion, that stick work portion of practice, that's your chance to really get in with individuals and clean things up, clean up the hand position, like where the weight of the stick is on the hand. A lot of kids need to work on that. When they go to their weak hand, their wrist is straight. They don't have that bend in their wrist because they haven't been coached on it, or they haven't gotten enough reps on that side. And that's a great point. I think, if there is a time to be like going around and coaching and talking as much as possible, particularly with individuals, it is during those technique focused drills during stick work. Whereas when you're setting up like keep away games or drills that are more competitive or like scrimmage type drills, it's like more play. That's your chance to take a step back and really notice the flow of the group and understand how to, you already gave a great example, create constraints that pull out the skills, right? A 5-second count, it works wonders. It's way more effective than saying, hey, you got to make one pass before you shoot. Like the magic dust of that 5-second or 4-second or 3-second count that you can add into really any drill or game is like, yeah, the player with the ball runs. Yeah, the player with the ball, it now has to make a decision a little bit quicker than maybe they would have otherwise. But also, their teammates are now like, oh, frick, I got to get open.
Yes.
Like I got to.
That's what you get for free.
Oh my goodness! And I'm seeing that as a coach, and I'm going, nice cut. Like, even though the ball carrier didn't see you, that was an awesome cut. And it's a great sort of framework for coaches to remember. Like, hey, it is the environment that pulls the skill out. You said this as well. I'm never going to talk my way into teaching a skill.
Mm-hmm.
They need to experience it. They need to feel it. So I love it, dude. Yeah, same page.
And I think that as I mentioned that, it was like, you got to hit two things really hard. You got to hit the fundamentals hard so it becomes second nature. And then you've got to hit that free play, coaching behind the ball type really hard. Free play is not like, it's a tool to be used. And you've just got to be able to use it correctly where it does maintain its freedom, and that you just build the same type of constraints that the game would have.
Got you. So one thing I want to make sure I talk about today and sort of get your opinion on, and hopefully get some like particular examples around.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most common challenges that youth lacrosse coaches face is of a group of, let's say, 20 kids. They've got 5 that have never played before. And this is even true for the 7th and 8th graders, like they end up getting a few friends join along for this upcoming season, right? And so you've got 3 to 5 kids that literally do not know how to hold the stick. You've got 5 kids that are club players. They've been playing for 3, 4, 5, 6 years already. They know how to throw behind the back pass. They roll their eyes when you do pop to catch drills and simple things. And then you've got the bulk of your group that's kind of intermediate, that's kind of in between. And so I certainly spend a lot of time working with coaches on and helping create strategies around, like, hey, for this particular drill, here's how you cater it for your beginner, intermediate, and advanced players. So how do you think about that? And maybe what are some examples of, like, hey, for this type of drill, here's like how I simplify it for this subset of players, and here's how I maybe would add a wrinkle or a challenge for those, more experienced players.
So I had a lot of thoughts as you were mentioning that. But the first thing is to make sure that you are coaching the decision, not the execution. So what happens in youth sports a lot is that the best players get the ball, and that's fine. I don't mind that. But when the best player has the ball in a practice and he draws 2, and the kid on the crease is brand new, and the kid knows he's probably not going to catch it, he still needs to throw that pass. Because when he's playing with other players that are of his caliber, that's the expectation. And so I think it's coaching to the right decision versus coaching to the execution. Now, games obviously have a lot more pressure, and there's parts in that, but the idea is, with however we're going to be playing, and you can have your slow it down or your fast paced stuff, is like, it has to be the decision. The other thing is that drills do not have an age group. Drills are freelancing from everything. The key is, what is the framework that you put into it? So let's say I have partner passing. With a brand new group, we're probably going to be standing. We're going to talk about shifting our weight from back to forward. We're going to talk about getting our hands away to turn it over. For catching, we're going to talk about, even if you have to grab the plastic like it's a baseball mitt, like that's how we're going to do it. And then as you do the same drills through time and they become more comfortable, now we can move into shuffle quick sticks. We can move into inside hand only, where you got to present your stick in front to catch it, to turn here. And so the key is not necessarily the drill you're doing, it's whatever you're putting into it. This is something that I put a lot of time and thought into, and wondered why something else I'm working on. It's a easier way to incorporate the LADM, the Lacrosse Athlete Development Model, into understanding. And they did an excellent job. There were just a couple of things. So I was watching my 7-year-old playing in his game, and on the Lacrosse Athlete Development Model, it said 4v4 was waiting until like 9. And I'm like, well, he's doing 4v4 right now. Like, so how, if I'm a coach that doesn't know what I'm doing, how am I seeing that he's playing 4v4 in the 7v7 game, but it says he's not going to get to that till 9? And the distinction that I found, and I created all my stuff now in this new app thing is tagged with this, but there's 3 phases of development. It's do it, coach it, own it. So at what stage does the kid do it? And I don't care if he does it right. I care that he tries a BTB, right? Then you have coach it. And that's where, whether it's a 3v3 that you're going to introduce at, 9 years old, it's like, that's when they're going to do it. And then they're going to coach within it in something where they can actually take that framework and use it, just because of the developmental stages and where they are. And then at what point, and this was a tough one, when should they be expected to own it? And so I'd love your feedback on this, but the way that I have it categorized and done is that, let's say you have a 14-year-old who's coming into the game as a freshman in high school. At what point should he be expected to own something that should have been built below it? And the thing I got was basically, once you've been playing for 20% of your life, you should be able to own the things of your age. And so it essentially gives you a realistic expectation of developing the skills that then transfer to the understanding. Because you get these kids who come from other sports and you're like, how can I just unlock this? Right. And some of them, it's super quick. They get, like, maybe it's a hockey kid. He gets the understanding of the stick, and then all of the field awareness doesn't go away. Like if you play basketball, your eyes don't go away once you have the control of the stick, like you had control of the ball. And so that was just kind of my first draft of how to think about those players and when they should be expected to do that. And the other requirement is that you have to pick up a stick every third day, right? So if you're playing all through the spring, you get to about 75% of where you'd be, but then in the off season, you've got to put in some time on the other days as well.
Got it. There's a lot of good value there. The very first part of your answer I thought was really, really interesting to think about, which is you're coaching the decision as opposed to the execution.
Yes.
Right? I think that that's fascinating. And one of the things that I would encourage coaches to like stay attuned to is, you might have an idea of like, hey, here are my like beginner players, really, again, regardless of age. Here are my more experienced players, and here are kind of my intermediate. That's like a snapshot in time. You may have, because this happens all the time, you may have one or two of those beginner players are like, it's a hockey player, it's a basketball player, it's a football player, it's a generally athletic kid that's like really going to pick things up pretty fast, and they need to be quickly moved over into that category of like intermediate and maybe even advanced because of how quickly they're developing.
Well, I want to build off that really quick with something that's
Please.
very like micro. That's why you have to hit both extremes. The skill development for all of the kids. And yes, do we have to do this again? Yes, we have to do it again. Like, do you see Denver doing stick skill drills? Yes. Okay. So we're going to do it too. So that takes care of your better kids. But then when you get into the free play for the players who aren't the best players, sometimes the intuition tells the coach, I can't put this kid into this drill because he's going to muck it up. And right there, I'm going to say, you are not putting him into a free play game. You are putting him into your idea of what the sport should look like. And in doing that, you are removing so many important variables, because I'm watching these college games right now, and not to be rude, I'm going, how are these kids' sticks not dialed? Like, you are a Division I athlete, and you just threw what should have been an easy 15-yard pass to your other guy's shoelaces. And so you can tell all the kids on the bench are like licking their lips. They're like, did you see that pass he threw? Like, I'm gonna be next. I'm here. And it's like, if the kid, so back to the 8-year-olds practice, you got your good kids, you got your not so good kids. The good kids are going to drop the ball too, just like the kid who isn't as good. And you rid the better players as well as the more inexperienced players of the opportunity to recognize the drop, think about how they can help the ball, think about how they're going to communicate as they see someone go to get the ground ball, by thinking you're going to build this system that's going to look good to you. And what's funny is when you get through the actual game, all of those systems, not only do they all work, like there's no one system that beats them all, but that system is built by those decisions. And so the idea is to build the framework and the decisions within them. And I've had it for years, but the kid's brain doesn't so I played the first game I've played in a year and a half last night. And what I found myself realizing, one, I'm totally out of shape. Like I haven't felt like I was going to throw up in quite a while. And as I was playing, I'm like, I know what I should be doing in this moment, and the like exhaustion and the thing. It took me like a while to be like, all right, in that situation, I'm going to do this. And that's because I have the framework of how the sport flows. But for the player, it's, well, let me rephrase this. What I realized was that as I was seeing the plays develop, the decisions I was making were not what I analytically thought about. It was what I had been training to do. I don't know if that makes sense, but basically the decision of the decision based on what you're seeing at the time is what we're trying to train. Because if you don't have that mapped, you have no context with which to make the right decision within the set or within the offense. And so,
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And one thing I would like to promote to coaches, I've definitely talked about it in the past, is a framework to think about how to simplify for your newer players and to challenge your more experienced players. Is if you think of an XY axis, on the Y axis you have pressure, and on the X axis you have footwork. And so the simplest version of a drill would be at the very, very, you know, beginning point of both of those axes, meaning you're standing still is your footwork, and there's no pressure. And there's different forms of pressure, right? Pressure, you might assume that means like a defensive pressure. It's like not necessarily. Like if a coach says, "Oh, like 30-second countdown," like that's a form of pressure. Is kind of that mental like sense of urgency, like that. That's kind of tied into that. And so maybe it's for a partner passing drill. Maybe it's for just like a pop to catch drill, which I'm a huge proponent of. You may start at that, hey, we're standing still and we're going to toss this to ourselves, or hey, we're standing still and we're just going to, work on our throwing and catching technique. And for those more advanced kids, you can start them, shuffling, or one of them is running towards the other as the other one backpedals, and then they switch. And so there's this challenge of, oh, I'm going to just increase the level of footwork for them because they're ready for it, and I think it's a mistake to have your go-to strategy be, I'm going to take my beginners and put them over here. I'm going to take my advanced and put them over here. You guys are doing different drills. It's like, no, no, no. We're going to stay together, but I have the ability to, challenge those players and simplify for those players as needed. So just something for coaches to remember, like, that really is the most common thing that I've seen as far as what coaches struggle with is like, man, I just have such a wide spectrum of skill, and really like personality types is built into that, right? Because that's how quickly they're going to develop and like work on what we're asking them to work on. It's kind of tied into their attitude and their mindset. And so being in tune with who's up for a challenge and who, like, you ask them to do something a little bit more and they kind of shut down a little bit. We need to be in tune with that as coaches, is yes, how to challenge appropriately, how to simplify appropriately, coupled with understanding the individual players well enough, and making that a point of emphasis as the season goes on to understand our players well enough so that we're getting that enthusiasm from everybody, hopefully over time. Taking note when we do try to coach someone up, if they react in a way that's like, ooh, that was, they didn't really respond how I would have hoped, and being, yeah,
yes,
being
let disappointments be a part of practice.
right,
Yeah, like
right,
you're going to be in a game, and it's funny because you see it at every single level where there's this thing that doesn't go the way we thought it was going to go, and then there's this big letdown of like, but that's like, that should be used in practice. Like, yes, you threw it to him, he did not catch it, cool. Are you going to sit there and complain about it? Sorry, I had to censor the censor what I usually would say. But are you going to complain about it, or are you going to get back and ride? You don't have the time to sit there and do it. And even last night, there were some players who were yapping back and forth from both teams, and it was just like the spirit of the game is cool. This is another thing that I really like a lot, and I don't know, I mean, it kind of applies, but it's like there's so much of this us versus them idea, like it's in our entire culture. But at that level, when we go out and my son's team is going to play another team, we're not playing against them, we're playing with them. Like, when you are put up against a challenge, another person, a test. It could be learning math. Your ability to respect that challenge and understand that it was presented in front of you to try to wield your gifts, that's when that respect just blossoms. And that's something I feel it has to be ingrained early. Like, so to give a fun story, when I was coaching at Grandview, this must have been like 8 or 9 years ago, we had a big issue with parents yelling at refs. And this ref made this call, terrible call, terrible. Our parents started yapping, and I called timeout, and I told my assistant coach, hey, can you get this real quick? And I walked across the field and I told the parents, if you are going to do this, your son will not be able to play in this thing with these refs. Like, because if you're causing a problem, the only reason you're here is your kid's here. And if you're going to ruin that for your kid, I have no problem telling him that he cannot be here because of your actions. Because in his life, if someone else comes with him and does illegal things, he's going to be on the hook for that. And so, like, end it. And then I walked back, and the refs kind of looked at me like, what was that? And it was like, the refs are helping us to create this environment. Like, we are partners with them. And if there's one thing for every coach that I did this, and it was one of my first videos ever called Coaches versus Refs. And it's funny because the picture is of like Harbaugh, like screaming at a ref. But it's that when the ref comes up to you at the beginning of the game, be respectful, get your players checked, but then ask them a simple question. That's it. Hey, at this level, do you know, are we playing this way or this way? Like, so are we going to have to get a touch in the box as the 20, or is it over midfield line? And ask it in a way where it's genuine. You may know the answer, but it creates the communication that you're allowed to have. As a coach, you are allowed to ask questions about the rules. Now, can you use that in kind of a vindictive way? Sure. But the idea is that without them, who's going to ref? Your assistant? Are you going to ref? Like, and so it's fun because once you've coached enough, you realize that you are that aggravated coach on the other team's sideline that you're laughing at, right? That's me coaching for them. And if I don't see that as also me in another time, you kind of miss it. But yeah, now we're all in the weeds.
No, I mean, it's an important topic, man. There's a lot of things that come up, and it's sometimes mind-boggling. Like, why are parents freaking out at a youth lacrosse game? And a lot of times these are high school kids that are reffing. We have one adult ref and one high school kid that, went through some training, but it's like, look, they're not out here trying to screw your kid over, right? But I digress. Anyone who's freaking out at
so I got to add one thing for the refs.
Yeah, please.
Call the rules like they are at every level. So this drove me nuts last year, and I even made a video on it. And it was about how they're setting themselves up for failure in the beginning of the year because they're not calling the rules like the rules are. So, like, let's take my son. He was playing goalie. And in the beginning of the game, in one of our first games of the year, he picked up the ball outside the crease and ran back in the crease. And the thought on the refs thing is like, oh, he's young, he doesn't know, I want to let him play. Wrong distinction. Mm-hmm. You want to use that as a teaching mechanic of like, oh, nope, you can't do that, because in 3 weeks when it's the playoffs, he's going to need to know that. And when he's like, why didn't it get called this time and that time? Like, it's to use the rules in the framework of the game as a teaching tool instead of thinking about it as you making a call. Like, you didn't make the rules. You're just trying to view if a rule is infringed upon. But if you think that the kid can't handle it now, like, and what's funny is that even goes into the coaching and the parents too. We don't care if you call the game. We care if you don't call it consistently. And that's what's hard from the reffing standpoint, is because it's hard to be like, oh, is that a brush? Is that a slash? Like, it's all tough and nuanced.
Agreed. Yeah, it's challenging. There's no doubt about it. Well, in the sake of time, I want to start to think about wrapping this up. But what I definitely want to make sure I cover with you is some kind of a, how do you think about your, I guess, practice plan template? Does that change for different age groups, or do you have sort of like a structure where you know you're going to spend a certain amount of time on certain types of drills or games? And even does that change throughout the season for you, or do you feel like, do you have a specific sort of framework that, works for you and you just kind of plug and play the drills that you deem necessary?
Should I just show you? Well, I'm like debating if I should pull up the app and the practice planning stuff. So I would say that you need to know the drills that you can keep the same so that you can get into and out of them quickly, but allow the kids to build the skills within them and grow through time. So the reason Brody, I was going to mention this earlier, you mentioned Brody Merrill saying like you got 20 for 20. The reason he can take 20 seconds to say the drill is because he's like, hey, we're going into partner passing. We're going to do shovel quick sticks. Then we're going to do wind up face out shovel pass. And then after that, we're going to go into, tiger drill or whatever. But the kids already know what that is. So if you've got to coach it, you got to keep the same things and you got to make sure that there's a through line that will allow the kids to build within it because you make a change to the constraint, but they know where they're going to set the drill up. It's just different concepts within it. And then in terms of becoming a great coach, I think you have to close what I call the coaching loop. So one of the things that we talk about is that when we want to create a great foundation, we want to have a plan for coaches, whether it's education or like getting them a practice plan. You want to have a path for players of how they can improve on their own so they can come to practice ready. And then we say proof, but it's like you want to have proof that when the players are doing something outside of practice, when they come back, that there's not open loops everywhere. But so for coaches, what I call the coaching loop is you're running a practice, you can take some notes, you can say how this thing and that thing went, but you've got to be able to reference that the next time. So as you're seeing the game, the drill, whatever it is, the skill, the player, you've got to be able to use whatever that knowledge was when you create it the next time. I'll give you an example. Let's say you're running a turncoat style drill, which turncoat just means the first time we go into this rep, you're going to be offense. And then the next rep's going to come at you, but you're going to be defense and we're going to alternate the colors and then you're going to go out. Well, you may run a drill like that and say to yourself, man, each rep took us 10 seconds just to realize where we were. And maybe that's because your kids are too young and they can't think through the change of position. But it could also be that you don't have a coach there who's pulling guys out. But if you go try to run that drill again and you forget that was there, you're just slowing yourself down. And so, yeah.
Okay. I like that. But can you give me let's say you've got 75 minutes with a third and fourth grade group. How are you spending that time? What amount of minutes in that example is, warm up and stick work and, are you doing stations? Are you doing gate? You know what I mean? Like how are you breaking up that time? All right. So he's sharing his screen with me. So for those who are driving, just listen. But Coach Patrick's going to talk us through. Where are we right now?
So we are on the practice planner. And so this has, I think it's like 160 drills. You click it, drag it in. You can drag and drop to whatever you want. You can add notes. You can add parallel drills in time, and then you can print it. And it gives you a nice little printout of everything with your notes. Changing the times. I'll get through the little demo thing. We got to go at 6:15, not 5:15. Everything auto updates through it. And then let's say I don't remember what 1v1 ground ball to goal is. I click it. I see a diagram of exactly what it is. So I know what it is right then. Now, within this, I've got some templates built that coaches can just get in and they could say, we want to do introducing the game. We want to run this. And it'll give exactly what I would run in all my notes and things. I could change up, we want to do push to the goal hard in the one-on-one ground balls to goal, and it'll all update with everything there. But so one of the things that I really love about that question is a lot of coaches don't know what they would pull to put in here. And that's why I built this thing on the side. So as we've been talking, there's a big thought process. And this is how I think about it. Are you building skills to put into the systems, or do you need to have the awareness of what the system is in order to put it into the in order to build the skills that fall within it. And so that's what these 3 items are. So let's say I think skills need to be first. You said 75 minutes, so we'll have to modify one of these. But so we do a setup, dynamic warm-up. We'd go into the skill drill 1 and then 2. And then here's how I think about the concepts and framework of a linear progression from skills to systems. You've got 3 types of skills, or 2 types of drills. 5 types of drills. You've got skill drills, concept drills, one-on-one drills, where the one-on-one drills are huge because there's no running away from doing the skill that you've just learned, right? If I'm on a one-on-one, I'm the only one that can be in the one-on-one. And so then you have team drills. This is your Duke drill, West Jenny, things that kind of, they start and stop based on a whistle or based on reps. And then you have live play. And now I know you're going to love this, but do you see how this one is green? And this one's lighter green, and then yellow and orange and red? That's how much you should coach within that drill. If you're in a skill drill, coach a lot. Coach it. Concept drill, we're trying to learn a concept about the game. Coach a good amount. 1v1s, less. Team drills, less. Live play, bite your tongue, coach behind the play. And so in terms of what you would want to put into it, I think of it as, if I'm going to do a linear fashion, I want to build the skill drills to build the skills. Then I want to test them in a one-on-one fashion. Then I'll teach the concepts within to get to our team drills or our live drills. And so that's what these on live say. Now, as I've watched Coach Monroe's videos through time, when we were at Vista together, he was each motion had a name. And now, as I've heard him talk, he's all free play. And it's fun because I used to watch his kids when he would be doing ESPN and this and that. And they just go out in the street and they just play and they just have fun. It's amazing. But if I switch this to live, say I got 60 minutes, I'm going to go set up announcements, dynamic warm up, and we're just going to play live. Maybe it's 3v3, maybe it's 4v4. You'll have to put that in the plan and do it how you want it. But then as I see what's happening, if I have the framework, I'll probably have what we're doing next already outlined. But let's say I see a specific skill like stepping away to pass that we're not doing. Well, in that skill drill, we're going to be doing eye passing, where there's a player up there, there's a line here, and all I'm doing is I'm running up, I'm stepping away, I'm making my pass. But because I have the awareness of being in live play, I know right where to put it. And so it's kind of just flipping it from that way. And then we'll go into a concept drill where we build the concepts we want in live play, and then we'll just play again. And I think it's important that coaches don't change the drills they do a lot for younger teams and teams that need to have a good framework, but it's to choose the right drills that you can build a lot within and that you can be balanced as well.
Love it. Love it.
And so
it's good stuff.
That's how I would go through those items.
Good stuff. Well, I know we could talk lax all day, but I think, it's probably a good time to put a bow on this one.
Yep.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you for spending some time with us. Hopefully coaches got a lot out of this. Before we go, where can we send coaches who are interested in learning more about what you offer? And where can they find you on the internet?
So most important thing is just, there's powlax.com, the website that I had way too many plugins in. And then there's app.powlax.com. And then go to the resources page. So let me do this really quick just so they can see what it is.
And I can include that link right in the description as well.
So basically all of my videos, so the link that you'll have to that will take them to this page. But all of these, you just kind of click them and now we're learning how to shoot in tight. But so there's tons of educational videos, strategies, drills, you can search them and all that stuff, but that's all here. You can watch all the videos for free. And then the last thing that I want to make sure I get into is we mentioned the players earlier, and everyone always talks about player buy-in. And in order to buy in, practice has to be fun. And practice can't be fun unless you get that play that we get at the end. And so just within this, I want you to think about who you'd like. I think we did this at thing, but so we have a skills academy that gamifies things for the players. And so as they hop in, they get short videos, and depending on the level you get, basically you get a whole beginner series with the lower levels, and then you get the ability to recommend workouts to players to do at home to build the skills that you need them to build for your team. But just to explore that, to see if you would use it. And so final story, and I've got a 115, or I guess 11:15 as well. But I did one of these with my 7-year-old, and he did a 40-minute workout by himself. And even though all the things weren't right, when we get to practice and things, that's where the refinement can come, but the stick's in their hands. And the first time we did one, he was complaining. I haven't been out doing the lacrosse things, so he's kind of wanting football and whatnot. But when I told him, hey, you ready to come get your points? And so when the timer goes up, they give a nice little, like, what do you call it, animation of points.
Some confetti or something? Okay, yeah.
It's like coins that come up that then fill this. If we talk another 55 seconds, I'll just show you here. But that all of this can be tied into a whole system with a team where you can have leaderboards and competitions. One coach using it in South Carolina, he does like whoever does the most work the week before, they're in a line group together. So this really good kid didn't do the work, and he came to practice and he's like, Coach, I should not be in this group, because instead of catching balls at his collarbone, he's catching them at his knees. And he's like, Coach, I want to be with these kids again. He's like, dude, you didn't do the work. And then what he found was that that kid being with the other kids, the kids that weren't as good because they weren't kind of congregating together, then those other players were getting balls to their stick and they were catching them because he had the precision to put it in the stick. But it gave those kids the motivation to build their skills to become that teammate. And so I wish I would have filmed it, but my son, when he saw this, he was like, I got 10 points. And it was the coolest thing. And so when they do that, then they get a progress thing through time. They earn ranks and badges, and it kind of gamifies it. And just the last sentence I'll say is, if you coach a kid during practice, you tell him what to do on his own. Once he gets in that car, you are fighting TikTok, girls, TV, Switch or Xbox, and parents don't know what to do or have them do at home. And so and we started with this, but one of my foundations that I realized I had was I had my brothers to kind of tell me what to do and to go play with them. Most kids don't have that. And so when we want to get player buy-in, I think the thing that coaches and players really don't realize is that to get that buy-in, you have to put the work in. Because if I've worked at something, I think I'm going to get a result. And that's so kids want to know, is the juice going to be worth the squeeze? And if they don't know what to do or the parents don't know how to help, I call it parents putting their kids out on an island with a sport they don't know. But if they don't know how to help them, they're way more likely to encourage them to go back to the sports that they know, because they can help them with football. They can help them with basketball. But they're like, I don't know what to do for lacrosse. And this kind of, in terms of the growth of the game, like regardless of using the platform and the app, like the backyard videos where I teach how to do skills, how to teach the technique and the drills to do at home, those are the videos that so many dads have been like, dude, thanks for this, dude. Like the fact that I can help them now, like I don't feel like I'm just on the sideline as a passive bystander, like I'm actually guiding my kid. And that family dynamic is what it's all about for all levels.
Well, Coach Patrick, thank you for spending some time with us at On the Fly. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Coaches, hopefully you got something out of this. Make sure you check out what Patrick has to offer, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, all.